Hello, everyone. Welcome to Learning from Experiences. I am Ronak Agarwal. Today, I'm joined with Joseph Choi, who is here with me to talk about life. Joseph Choi is the co-founder of Techpod and a business operations intern at Salesforce. Joseph has a lot of experience in business, startups, and as an Eagle Scout, and also has a podcast called Behind X. Joseph, thank you for taking the time to join me today.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited
Absolutely.
for the conversation.
Awesome. So I want to start off talking to you about TechPod. You guys have been growing rapidly and have been making a large impact on people everywhere. Can you tell me a little bit about how TechPod started and where you see it going?
Yeah, TechPod actually started as a way for me to kind of make friends during the beginning of the summer. Is kind of like when the pandemic was starting up and everyone was realizing that everything was going to be remote, especially internships. And um, yeah, I think I saw LinkedIn as a way to build community. So I just kind of started talking about my experiences being a business student or econ student in the tech industry, but having a non-technical role, not software engineering. I think a lot of people resonated with that. And yeah, that's just that message that, if you're a business or an econ or a communications major in college, you don't have to be a a consultant or in finance. And there's actually a lot of non-technical roles in the business side of the tech industry. So yeah, ever since then, we've just been growing really, really fast and building a team. And we have weekly events and we have a weekly newsletter and we run clubhouse rooms. And yeah, it's just been fun like meeting everyone in the community.
That's awesome. And how do you guys find guests to talk on your seminars, your webinars? How do you go about locating people and saying, "Hey, we would love for you to speak to our community"?
Yeah, it's all networking. I actually didn't really understand like the power of networking and LinkedIn, especially until this summer. I really only started networking yeah, the beginning of the summer, the beginning of the pandemic. I think I had around 400 connections around that time. And now it's about 6, 7, 8 months later, and I'm at like 8 or 9,000, I think, is the last time I checked. And yeah, it's just kind of just compounds. Like once you get to know certain people, they just connect you with even more people. And yeah, like now we just have like this really big network of all these people who've landed these roles in the business side of tech. And we ask, we get repeats sometimes, and we get people who've worked with us in the past being mentors in the program to be speakers. We get people who have been speakers to be mentors. um, and yeah, it's a cool network.
That's great. And how can students learn more about the various business fields and get a better understanding?
Yeah, the different business fields. I mean, that's what our newsletter is for. We are trying to solve this problem of people just not knowing what's out there. Um, when I first started college, I had no idea, what roles there were in the business side of tech. Just to name a few roles that I had no idea were a thing. Um, Sales strategy and operations. So there's sales teams at these software companies, and you need strategy and operations to support those sales teams. So that's a really interesting role that we've met a few people in the community who have that. There's solutions consulting, so, or solution engineering, and it sounds um, maybe it sounds like consulting, maybe it sounds like engineering. It's kind of like both, actually. And you don't necessarily need to be a programmer. It's like pre-sales, um, but it's a pretty big role that like people like don't really know about. Um, but yeah, like we send out all these roles and new job postings every single week through the TechPod newsletter. So that's the resource that I would recommend for people if they're interested in just getting started and um, finding out what's out there.
Okay, that makes sense. And you've talked about the power of networking. So, how do you recommend someone use LinkedIn to learn, grow, and get connected with the right people to progress as just humans and in their professional careers?
I would recommend making a post. The first ever post I made in LinkedIn, I think I got like 2 likes on it, and it was just like the two like friends that I had met in school, or maybe they were even from high school. Like I wasn't really using LinkedIn to build my network, but eventually, like as I kept posting and tagging people, and like actually, like every time I would meet someone, I would um make a post, and then I would tag them in it, and then they would react to it, and that would just expand my network. So the after a while, like one of my posts just kind of blew up, and it got like 10,000 views, even though I had like only 400 connections. And that's what like started the whole growth from that 4,000 to like uh like 400 to about 4,000 by the end of the summer. um just like making posts, and that power of compounding, like it just kept growing every time I made a post. And yeah, that's what I would recommend. I mean, it like just as general advice, I think posting is good, but if you want to get granular, like it really depends on what industry you're in, who you're trying to network, what stage you're at. For students, I would recommend networking with other students, actually, because like you don't necessarily need to be networking with older people. I've actually learned a ton from my peers, people who are like a year younger, a year older than me. um so yeah, you don't have to put a ton of pressure on yourself to meet like people who are 5-10 years into their career. You can just start by meeting students and expand your network that way.
Thank you for sharing that. And when you're talking about posting, how does one create content and come up with the ideas behind these posts?
um the question was how do I find how do I think of content.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, I don't know, I have a doc. I have like a doc of all these like ideas that I'd like to write about. um yeah, I don't know, I just kind of like write about my experiences. The problem with LinkedIn is it has this weird stigma around it for like people, I don't know, just being weird on LinkedIn. And there's all this like self-congratulatory stuff. There's a lot of virtue signaling and just a lot of like noise in general on LinkedIn. And I found that if you're just genuine, authentic, and just write how you talk, don't try to make it sound super professional or super official. Don't try to make yourself sound like an expert. If you just talk according to what your position is, like if you're a student, you don't have to sound like an expert. You're just a student, so you just share the things that you're learning. Um, sometimes I would come across a new concept, or I would go to an event. Um, an online event, and I would learn something, or I would listen to a podcast or video like this, and I would learn something, and I would just write a post about it and say, here's what I'm learning. It doesn't have to be super, professional and stiff. I think I would really recommend trying to find your individual voice, um, and writing as authentically as possible, because that's how people actually get to know the real you, and you know you can make friends. I think the like in general, LinkedIn is super intimidating because like networking is feels like very transactional, but if you approach it as I'm just trying to make friends, then I think it becomes a lot more approachable.
Thank you. And then talking about learning, how does one go about using LinkedIn for learning?
hmm I guess, I mean, there's LinkedIn Learning itself, so you can take courses, and I've actually taken a bunch of like pretty good LinkedIn Learning courses. But other than that, I mean, you learn from people, right? So there's communities. So I would say that if if you want to learn about a specific topic or subject or industry, I would join Slack and Discord groups. So like Slack and Discord groups have been really growing in the past year, and there's a Discord group or a Slack group for everything. So there's one of the first ones I ever joined was Product Buds, and it's a community for aspiring product managers. And um, they helped me with case interviews, and I just met a bunch of people in the industry. And yeah, people are like willing to help. And um, I think finding communities makes your world a little bit smaller, so it's easier to, you know, talk to people within the community rather than cold outreaching to hundreds of people on LinkedIn just hoping that they'll respond. I think it's a lot easier to do that within communities that are smaller.
Very well said. And also, other than why behind X, is there a favorite podcast that you have and why?
Yes, I actually like Founders Journal a lot by Alex Lieberman, the founder of Morning Brew. And it's really short, like podcast episodes that are super actionable. Um, and yeah, they're like 10, 15 minutes each. And he just talks about, um, yeah, it's like his daily audio diary for the world, just talking about the lessons that he's learning in entrepreneurship. And he's also a Michigan alum, so big fan of like any company started by a UMich founder.
That's awesome. I'm from University of Houston, so go Cougs. What is some advice you'd like to share to people trying to break into the tech side of business without coding? Is there anything that one particular advice that sticks out?
Yeah. Yeah. So for the business side of tech, I would say um, a good way to think about it is as opposed to the tech side of tech. So like software engineering and like data science. Um, it's much less about your technical skills. A lot of roles in the business side don't even require coding at all. So you really have to focus on soft skills and impact. And I think one of um, the biggest things, the most important lessons I've learned is from just doing it, actually starting something. So the first kind of like entrepreneurial venture that I started was a couple of years ago. I started my own clothing brand with a couple of friends, and we just, we sourced suppliers from Hong Kong, and we just kind of like, um, made these custom prints and we sold them. And then, it wasn't tech, but it was still business. And you learn supply chain, you learn negotiation, you learn e-commerce. And I've done a bunch of things since then. Now it's Techpod, and I'm learning like team management. We have a team of 16 people, and we're learning marketing. Growing from 0 to 12,000 email subscribers in a few months. It like all these um, side projects, I guess you could call them, are have given me probably the most transferable skills that are actually required by these tech companies, or the skills that these tech companies are looking for. So I'm just a huge advocate for side projects. I always say like school is a side project, because school is great if you're studying for a major that has skills that you directly use in a job like computer science. But if you're studying econ, you're probably never going to use it in your life. So you have to find something that will uh, let you practice those skills in real life.
That's awesome. That makes a lot of sense. And my final question for you is, what is your most valuable experience you've had? And that can be in the professional world, family, friends. But what sticks out and makes Joseph Choi Joseph Choi?
Oh, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what is your most valuable experience that has helped shape your journey?
Oh man. Okay. Most val that's really hard to think about. Okay, I'll say this. Um I think the most valuable was starting my e-commerce business. So, um, back in sophomore year, I was actually, this is junior year. In junior year, I was really struggling in my econ classes, and I was just like, okay, this is like boring, first of all, and it just feels like I'm the kind of person who really wants something tangible and like hands-on experience. And I was studying for my econ exam. Actually, it was a final exam, and I had like 48 hours to study for this thing. Um, and instead of studying, I just like started an e-commerce business. I was just like researching it for the past few weeks, and I was like, all right, like I just need to like take my mind off this studying. Like it's just too much. So I just like started the business and started making money like right away, like within the next couple of days. And I ended up, you know, doing the exam and I did fine. But um eventually like I just kept going to e-commerce, and I the first one didn't do super well, but I learned a lot of good lessons from it, like how to think about your profit margins, how to do copywriting for advertisements, um, how to just think about your balance sheet in general and like profit and loss and everything. Um, and yeah, I think that was just like fundamentally I think just I learned the fundamentals of business through that. And a lot of people you might hear about like drop shipping on like these YouTube ads, and it might seem like a pyramid scheme or like a scam. Um, drop shipping is just a fulfillment model. It's not even a business model. It's not a get rich quick scheme. Um, drop shipping really taught me like the basics of business, and I would actually recommend it to anyone if they're curious.
Sorry, quick question off of that. You don't think drop shipping is dead, that type of industry? It's not oversaturated?
Um, there's no such. I don't think there's such thing as something. Well, okay. I, I think all industries like have opportunity to be saturated when too many people are doing the same thing. So what you need to do in any industry where there's competition is do something that's different from the competition, right? Like I don't think there's definitely industries where there's like no competition and it's just really easy to get into, but I think drop shipping itself is just a fulfillment model, and certain models of drop shipping are probably too saturated, like um, using certain certain suppliers or certain sources for suppliers, or doing ads in a certain way. But I think the model itself is just a fulfillment model that it's just a fulfillment model, so it can't be saturated. I think there's certain pockets of it of people who are following the same gurus, so they're all doing the same things and they're all saturating each other. But I think as a fulfillment model itself, I don't think that it is dead.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun.
Thank you.